It's May 15th, 2014. The time is 7:03, and we are starting the monthly meeting of the Beech Grove Redevelopment Commission. We'll first call for introduction of our members, starting to our far right.
I'm Tammy Story. I'm the school board representative.
I'm Janice King. I'm a school board member and a member of the RDC.
Kathy Chappell, secretary.
Ron Moat, Vice President.
And Donald Webb, President. So if we will, we'll start off with our meeting, or minutes from last meeting.
The Beech Grove RDC met on Monday, April 28th at Beech Grove City Hall. Members present included Donald Webb, President, Ron Moat, Vice President, Kathy Chappell, Secretary, Janice King, and Tammy Story. Kathy Chappell read the March minutes and they were approved as read. Outstanding bills were voted upon unanimously to be paid in full. President Webb told the RDC members that we are required to get 3 bids for the removal of the Wi-Fi equipment because the bill totals more than $10,000. There are also 3 poles that, because of their size, are required to have a licensed company to take them down. Don said there's a company in Illinois who is going to check into. NRP has to evaluate the rock pile and present the information by July 23rd, which ends their 90-day extension. Reports on their proceedings will be available after that date. Janice presented pictures she took of Main Street businesses and made notations regarding signage, what was in compliance and what should be changed. She believes we can make changes even on a limited budget, and she is aware some businesses may be reluctant to adhere to guidelines. In some cases, just a fresh coat of paint can be an improvement. Janice says she does not want businesses to think we are trying to look like Carmel. We're trying to look like an improved Beech Grove. Secretary Kathy Chappell asked Mayor Buckley if the businesses on Main Street are in the TIF district. They are not, only the streets and sidewalks. Mayor Buckley also passed out a hard copy of the TIF districts. It was also discussed that the Metropolitan Planning Board will be rezoning, and when completed, the RDC will be made aware of changes. Kathy Chappell said she asked a general contractor if he could take a look at the Greenwood Amphitheater and give a ballpark amount on construction cost. He has not gotten back with her with info. However, Donald mentioned perhaps adding playground equipment to the parks. Kathy did not have any information regarding flipping houses. Janice asked about hiring a grant writer, and Donald advised that the RDC is not allowed to actually hire employees. He said he would ask Manny, one of our attorneys, about contracting with a grant writer instead. Tammy Story reported that starting next year, Beech Grove students will be required to perform service hours. The RDC indicated how much that requirement could help the community. Vice President Ron Moat asked Mayor Buckley about community service being imposed for minor infractions. That is something that must be researched. Mayor Dennis Buckley discussed the TIF districts in Beech Grove, specifically the property around the hospital. St. Francis is built upon only 14 acres. The additional 26 acres includes the professional center and all the way over to Marsh Grocery. There is a gentleman interested in converting the professional building into a senior citizen and assisted living facility. Mayor Buckley is asking the RDC to consider paving the area surrounding the structures. Janice expressed her concern over the possibility of more senior citizens moving into Beech Grove. Mayor Buckley explained that a study showed although it seems like we are only concerning ourselves with senior housing, there still appears to be a need for even more facilities. Mayor Buckley said as an RDC, we can set building guidelines that must be adhered to. The topic of repairing and replacing certain roads in Beech Grove was brought up by Donald Webb. He expressed his concern for some of the residents that live near these streets. Janice expressed her concern over the roughly $250,000 expense. Mayor Buckley said the city is picking up the engineering fees. It was suggested the RDC set a cap on the maximum amount we will contribute. Once United Consulting has done their evaluation, the paving job will be available for companies to bid. President Webb mentioned his concern for the pavement in the Sarah Bolton Park, not only the entrance from Sherman Drive, but also around the ballpark. Secretary Kathy Chappell volunteered to contact Bill Hall at United Consulting and asked them to add that area into the list of repairs and replacements. Member Tammy Story asked the mayor if any plans were in the works for installing plumbing in Beech Grove parks. He explained because of vandalism and too many fires, certain items had to be removed, such as grills and bathroom faucets, and those items would not be replaced, and there will not be any actual plumbing installed. President Donald Webb made a motion to pay up to $220,000 of replacing and repaving certain streets in Beech Grove. The motion was seconded by Vice President Ron Moat and carried unanimously. Bruce By, a 38-year resident of Beech Grove and retiree of Elanco, said he had met with Mayor Buckley and Superintendent Dr. Paul Kaiser. He wanted to let us know he would be bringing a guest to our May 15th meeting. His name is Frank Nerzwicki, and he is from Indiana University. He will be presenting a proposal of where the city of Beech Grove will be in the next 10 years. The mayor went on to explain the city is starting to write a new economic development plan. Kathy Chappell asked the mayor if the RDC can rewrite the comprehensive plan developed by the original RDC. Although previously the RDC was told they could not make changes, it was made clear that information is incorrect. President Webb advises that Tim Showalter will be taping future RDC meetings at a fee of $150 per meeting. The meeting was adjourned at 8:14 p.m. Respectfully submitted, Secretary Kathy Chappell.
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's the meeting minutes. Quick NRP update. Got the email from Doug, as you guys may have seen. It looks like they're moving along, and it looks like mid-June will be when they start really working on the remediation and the grading. Doug said they're still on course to finish up, so we'll start seeing that stuff probably in our next meeting. So they're at least making progress on it, and both of them, Mary and him, both seem confident in being able to get that done by the July 23rd deadline.
Wow.
Well, I guess with that, that's all I had. Do you guys have anything real quick? Who would like to go first?
Thank you.
I guess you'd like to go first.
He has a further drive than I do, Bruce. Thanks for having me. I'm Frank Nearwicki. You're pretty close on the name.
Oh, I put a Z in there.
Well, that's. Yeah.
I know there's a Z in it, but I pronounced it. I was trying to figure out how to do that.
In South Bend, or they pronounce it Nerzwicki, but we've been removed from Poland for a few years.
Well, I'm glad I was close.
So,
What's he
from the
saying?
standpoint of my background,
Can you step up to the microphone so we can get you on camera?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know what you meant, Tim.
do this.
Yes, my name is Frank Nearwicki, and a little bit of background. I grew up in Huntington, Indiana, near Fort Wayne. Did my undergrad at Valparaiso University, northwestern part of the state, history and political science. I came to Bloomington, Indiana, back in the late 70s, early 80s, to work on a master's degree in public administration and public affairs. Once I had that degree, I ended up working for the Indiana Department of Transportation, INDOT, for 15 years. I was a senior long-range planner in southern Indiana. I had the Vincennes and Seymour districts under my jurisdiction. I did projects, I don't know if you ever heard of I-69 or not. We worked on that a few decades. But I was also project manager on the bridge project down in Louisville, Kentucky, Indiana area. Following that, I was actually the Metropolitan Planning Organization director in Bloomington. I did that for 5 years, and then I moved on to the as a planning director for the town of Ellettsville, which is just west of Bloomington. I've also been teaching for over 10 years as an adjunct part-time professor for a number of years, and then for the last 2 years I've been full-time faculty. My title now is visiting lecturer at IU, the School of Public and Environmental Affairs. What I've done is actually provided some information. I know it's a lot to read in a very short time period, but I just wanted to show you a little bit of what we've done in the past. I think there's a comprehensive plan from the town of Ellettsville included, and also some of my students work with the city of Bedford, Indiana, and Mitchell. So we do have that information for you. One thing I've been asked to look at by the mayor and some other people here in town is about redevelopment options in Beech Grove. Beech Grove has a lot of opportunities here, obviously. I did not grow up in Beech Grove. I'm new. I've been through Beech Grove before. I've been up here the last year or so, somewhat on meetings. But there's a lot of things going your way for redevelopment. There are also some threats and problems you're going to have to face, and I think you've done that fairly well up to this point. But redevelopment needs to be a strategic process. You need to have a plan where you want to go, and you have to follow through and actually follow through on that strategic plan. Part of the issues is you've had some changes over the last few years with St. Francis Hospital, that area, and some other things on downturn in employment. Cities and towns in the state of Indiana are having a lot of difficulty with financing. The issues with property caps and some other things have actually put a burden on a number of different communities. What this has done is actually put more pressure on the very few tools that cities and local jurisdictions have on raising revenue and making improvements. The Redevelopment Commission, using tax increment financing, TIF districts, and some other things, is one of the ways to actually be able to use some revenue to enhance and bring business to the community. What I'm proposing in the proposal in front of you is actually 4 different areas. The first is actually consulting on planning. What I propose to do is bring all the documents that you've had up to this point on the comprehensive planning issues with the Metropolitan Planning Organization out of Indianapolis, Marion County, and actually go ahead and actually look at where everything sits. What's very common in many areas is you'll have a lot of different plans, and depending who was working on which plan, they may not know what was going on before that. Very few people actually have an overlap of different plans and understands where they're going in any one area. So basically what I want to do is look at current zoning. Why is zoning important to the Redevelopment Commission? When you go ahead and have an area redeveloped, you need to be able to understand what types of businesses can come in and what kind of uses are going to be allowed in that area. So zoning is very important. Procedure to give an update. The other issue on this is that through Unigov, Beech Grove has their planning done through the Metropolitan Planning Group in Marion County. You need to make sure you have input on that. One thing I did jot down was that there might be some changes in zoning coming up. It's very important that Beech Grove is strongly involved. I'm not saying you're not right now, but it's very important to be involved as you set this up versus later on and finding if you want to redevelop an area, you can't do it because of the zoning issue. You can always rezone. Rezoning takes time, and it does take some money to do that. The other issue on this is to go ahead and provide a listing of contacts, phone numbers, emails, to actually be able to leave something behind for the Redevelopment Commission and the city to actually to understand who you need to go to. You know, if you have a question and problems, where on a planning issue do you need to talk to? Where do you need to go on redevelopment? What's going on in the Indiana General Assembly right now that you should or should not know what changes may happen and may affect the area? So I'm going to go ahead and that would be part of the procedure. One other thing I would like to do in this proposal would be to, I don't know, Mayor, are you involved with IACT, Indiana Association of Cities and Towns?
Yes, somewhat.
Well, if you pay your dues,
That's the somewhat.
okay, then the benefits you have is that there's actually a redevelopment subcommittee from IACT that I would highly recommend someone from the community to be involved with. And what that would do is actually show what's going on in other places in the state, actually gets the name of Beech Grove out among other areas. So it's very good from a public relations standpoint and education standpoint also. Economic development. I really don't know how many TIFs you have. And it's very important to have a very good understanding of all the TIFs. there's been some problems with TIFs, and I heard the city's name of Carmel mentioned when I was sitting here at first part. Some people have been upset with the number of TIF districts that Carmel has instituted over the last number of years. That has led to a study and actually a lot of comment at the General Assembly level. We did have some students from SPIA actually do a review on that, and I can actually provide you some information on what they found on TIFs. The other issue on this is that environmental studies. We actually have to go ahead and have a detailed survey of all the work has been done. I have to get the issue on this rock pile and some of the other things are going on needs to be looked at more closely. Financial management, data management, transparency. You might say, why would the Redevelopment Commission really be interested in financial management, data management, and transparency? In today's world, everything is instant. Individuals want to go ahead and see how their money's being spent, what kind of progress are being done on different projects. And also, there's a responsibility with governmental units to be able to show what's going on for their money. As people in cities and towns are having a tighter and tighter budget, every dollar counts, and every unit needs to be able to use that dollar as efficiently as possible. So if there is a new fee or revenue enhancement that comes into a community, individuals may be very upset about that. So there may need to be a little bit of PR done to actually explain why this is needed and what's being done. One thing that I've actually proposed to some other communities is actually looking at having some meetings showing input. If you have some projects coming in, have some local input on some of those projects, so they kind of actually have ownership possibly on some of those projects, and actually show them when it's completed what's actually done. Your major project here on Main Street is excellent. I mean, it's really easy to see. Times when you do sewer and some other improvements, that's hard to see, but you still need to have those improvements being done. Capital improvement programs with relationship to the Redevelopment Commission. One thing that we need to be looking at is that you can't go out and purchase capital equipment for the city all at the same time. You need to be able to use the funding sources you have most effectively. Some of this would be, there's different funding sources. You have transportation funds that can come out of NDOT. You have other funding sources from OCRA, the local government office for the state of Indiana. So there's a number of things you need to do. And there's also funds you could use out of TIFs to actually be able to do improvements. So if you're able to have some of the improvements done by a TIF and not spend some of these other limited funds, that's going to be better for the whole community. So you're trying to make your bucks go as far as possible. So it's very important to be able to see how this comes together and actually have a program and actually put, as I understand, an annual appointment schedule. Is that?
Yes.
So that goes by pretty quickly, and there's usually a turnover on redevelopment commissions too. So that's something to think about. I would, it's up to you guys, obviously, what you want to do on this. But before you know it, it will be September, and you may, or October, it may be exactly the same spot you're at right now.
You're probably right, but we were just told at the last meeting that you were coming. We had no idea who you were, what you did. I mean, nobody had even said anything to us about it. We haven't even had a really chance to look at anything until yesterday. So I don't think it's quite fair to expect us to make a decision today when we didn't have any information.
Yeah.
Not to say that we couldn't call a special meeting or something and do it later, but I don't know. I'm just one person.
I heard you say something. I'm trying to find it so I put it in context.
Yeah, and I don't know, I agree with Janice in that, I didn't really get a chance, I saw the PDFs for like the comprehensive plan of Ellettsville, but I didn't really see any of the meat inside of it that would make me say, huh, that would be something neat for Beech Grove. I mean, I've got a picture of Ellettsville on the front, and I don't know, and I got a list of the comprehensive plan, but
Didn't we get like a 134-page report
Yeah, it's
somewhere?
part of the problem is actually sending it, a PDF form, for some people may actually clog up your emails. I do have one copy of the most recent one. The one reason why you're talking about the issue on short turnaround, that if you look at the date on the very front of that, May the 2nd, so that has just been completed. We've been a little busy.
Yeah, there's a lot to go through. I mean,
If I could say a
I
couple
just don't feel
things.
prepared to hear you.
Part of what I had recognized with our community is the importance of identifying those areas that offer the best and most important opportunities for Beech Grove. I had the opportunity to sit down with the mayor and be able to say, what is it that we do to, in fact, understand what our future direction really should be? And in talking with the mayor, we identified the situation where we really do need to have coordination with the many boards and commissions, the city of Beech Grove, as well as the schools, to be able to advance Beech Grove. And I know that everyone here is very interested and would like to see progress in our community. But with a situation of having limited resources, and in some cases, needing to be timely in certain things that are done, I went ahead and had contact with the IU school that works with communities in this area and said, we would like to know how is it that we best approach and take an organized approach for planning for Beech Grove. So we've had, 2 meetings with the mayor and the superintendent, along with Frank, to be able to say, what is it that we are really needing to do to move forward? And I think what you have here before you, and I also apologize for not getting this to you sooner. I mean, you had commented you would like to be able to see what is Frank's background and other studies. You actually didn't mention, hey, that you wanted to see the proposal prior to.
How,
So
we didn't even know what you were doing.
I
You
guess,
just came
I
in
guess
your
a couple
last
quick
meeting.
points. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
One is I asked because it was sent to me as a PDF, the Ellettsville file, and that's when I went to look for it. I didn't necessarily ask for it, but if it was presented to me, I wanted to see it. The second point I'd like to make is, you said you've had a meeting with the mayor and Dr. Kaiser.
Right.
What member of the RDC board was there included?
Yeah,
You're asking us to pay him $5,000.
right.
But so far, the 5 people who volunteered their time have not been included in any of these discussions or conversations. And that's not the, I mean, I would be willing to sit down on a Saturday morning or an evening after I'm off work and meet and have a table and discuss. I'd be willing to bring in the other public works, but we're talking about putting out $5,000, but yet, and to bring all these people together, but we're not even talking to the people we want to bring together, and that's where I struggle with this.
Too.
Well, if I could give some perspective, having a couple of these meetings, and it sounds like to me that it's just a great opportunity to have the initial discussion, like tonight, and give you guys a real good chance to read through the information and see it, because, being a grizzly veteran of 6 years working in this community, we have, a lot of money has been spent on projects that we don't see, and I think it's important, we're all good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And hopefully this can just serve as an introduction and, and as you guys have a chance, because, you guys are kind of forming up your own group and your own entity with some changes of people. And give you guys a chance to digest it, think about it, and have some time to look at the current redevelopment plan, and hopefully this serve as an introduction. And, it really doesn't matter whether this is done in September, October, November, or December. But maybe just as an initial meeting to get us, this is something we're thinking about, And I've been very impressed with Frank and his background, and I'm gonna talk to you about TIFs next. There's a lot to understand about the past, so we can plan for the future. And hopefully this will serve as kind of that spark that ignites the discussion and it kind of gets us moving. But, because we're right, there's not money to do long-term.
Paul, you need to be up at the podium.
He can't get you on camera.
Sorry. But, just the bottom line, I think, this would be a good initial meeting and good, see who Frank is and hopefully be able to move forward and do something in the
Sure.
future that can benefit our community. Because we need to know where we're going. We've got a beautiful downtown Beech Grove and just a great community. And if I'm a little biased, a great school system. I'm just excited. I got another 10 years to hopefully be in the school system. I want to see us teaming together for success. And I think with Frank's knowledge and your efforts and time, I think, a plan can be put forth at the time that you think is appropriate.
I don't disagree. That's what that's why I say it. And I've been thinking about that is we really need to look at what we've had in the past. And then, like I say, we need to get together the different groups at some point and sit down. And that way we could go to him with what we're specifically looking for in Beech Grove. What do we think will help Beech Grove? Because there's many ideas out there, but I mean, like I say, I don't know if all the studies we've done in the past, we've gotten any value for them, because to be honest with you, I don't know if anybody's ever bothered to look at them.
They have follow-through. I mean.
Well, and that's what I'm
All
saying.
the studies in the world will not help a community unless you follow through on it.
And see, that's the thing. I think previous RDCs have been so dysfunctional, and, there's been a lot of bitterness and politics in them that there hasn't been the follow-through on that. And so I don't object to what you're proposing. I think it's going to be needed, and I think we need a professional to help us with a development plan, but I'm just not so sure we're there yet, as much as we are that we need to figure out what each person wants out of their particular part of the development plan, and then be able to come to you and say, look, this is what we see Beech Grove going, and then be able to present that to you as what we're looking for. Because like your proposal was talking about like the rock pile, I mean, we've hired lawyers to look at that, and we're moving that forward and stuff like that. And I mean, development areas, St. Francis would be great if we could get a hold of it, but the problem is we don't have any money. So it's not like we could come in there and say, St. Francis, we're going to eminent domain you. We don't have any money. I mean, I think about the intersection out there at Churchman and South Emerson, that old mall that looks terrible. I'd love to be able to go in there and tear it down and redevelop it, but that costs money. And until we get the $6 million in debt paid off that the RDC incurred, we don't have a lot of money to do stuff.
Is that with new, okay, I'm sorry.
The one issue on this too is that you have to be very careful with the TIFs you do have, like what you're talking about, having those bonds paid off. And this person right here and that person over there with the school corporation, they're very concerned how TIFs are going to actually affect the bottom line for schools. So you have to have a plan of how you want to do this. I understand what you're saying on this is like, you have to make sure that there's no money. You have some money. You have to understand the money that you do have, how to spend it the best way you can. So before you go ahead and start developing new TIFs or something else, you need to step back, and that's okay. You may do it yourselves or whatever, but you need to step back and see what you're doing before you start spending more of that money. Of course, I do think $5,000 wouldn't be too bad. I'm just kidding, okay?
I have a two-part question.
Yeah.
First off, the $5,000, that is just a starting fee, right?
No, that would be for the whole study.
That would be for the whole study, okay.
So the way I have it set up, I usually do a lump sum type of thing. I have half it paid up front. There'll be a midpoint where it would be another payment, and then there'll be a reserve of 20% if you do not like the work. That you hold back the last 20% of the contract amount.
Second part is, this may be a little naive, but if it's going to be a collaborative effort between boards, why is it the RDC's responsibility to pay the whole $5,000?
It might not be.
Good point.
I was going to say, the city council, why can't we do it as a joint effort?
It's very well feasible to do
Okay.
it that way.
And as a school, we've already worked with Frank to pay a little bit up front just to get this going. I forget, it was a small amount, just for his time getting some of this stuff together, because It is critical. And I think the other thing we have to think about as a community is let's get more stakeholders involved. You know, I don't know who developed the previous RDC plan, but it shouldn't just be the people in this room. It should be our entire community by hosting community meetings. And, you know, we just went through a series of 4 community meetings. And I learned a heck of a lot from our patrons. Most of it good, but some areas that we need to improve on as a school corporation. I think as we develop this, it just won't be Frank looking at it. I think we have to look at this comprehensive plan of having community meetings and talking about it. You know,
This goes in the transparency issue of
Right.
trying to actually have people buy into the project. You have to have public support to do anything you really want to do.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think from a perspective of doing this type of study, obviously, interviews with the Redevelopment Commission would be very important, along with school board and other people. I interrupted you, I'm sorry.
So I'm just kind of trying to bring some connectives to the whole process. And
Can I ask you one more question, Frank? On this envisioning Mitchell, because I don't have time to read through the whole 134 pages right now, but what was one thing you found out that was lacking? And since you've done this report, what has been the reaction, or what are they doing going forward? What was something that their RDC or their mayor did not know about their community that they were surprised by?
Mitchell is a city of 4,000 people. It's had a major downturn in the economy.
Right.
Lawrence County has one of the highest unemployment rates in the state of Indiana. One thing that we did have a public meeting, outreach meeting, and we had 40 people show up. The mayor stated that was the first time he ever had 40 people show up for anything, even when they were upset. So it was time, they understood it at a community level, they need to do something to actually make a change. The elected officials there in Mitchell were very impressed with the understanding that the people had that they needed to do something. They just didn't know what it was. Our students, who were second-year graduate students, actually did very detailed analysis on business share, business sectors, looking at types of businesses we could actually target for Mitchell. Mitchell has a lot of things going for it, but a lot of things are against it also. That's the same way with any community. So the issue on this was, I think some of the elected officials didn't really know how interested some of the public would be. And they have some gems. They're only like 6 miles away from Spring Mill State Park. So they're looking at having a trail between, biking, walking trail between the state park and downtown, and a bus connection for tourism. We're working with the Department of Natural Resources and some other people with the state on that issue. The other issue on this would be the trying to get some businesses going in Mitchell. They have an opera house. Mitchell, Indiana, population 4,000, has an opera house that's actually listed on the National Register of Historic Places. We've actually looked at trying, some of the people we have at SPIA, to actually look at bringing in festivals and some other things as a revenue. If we're going to have, we're trying to market the region, not only just, Mitchell, Bedford, but the whole area. You have Orange County also. Here in Marion County, you're very close to downtown. All the things that you have close to the metro area being very close, but you have it in a community setting, a smaller town setting. So you do have a lot of things going for you. I'm sorry, did I answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, that's kind of what I was wanting to understand. I mean, at least you gave some context to it, I think.
Well, I think the key thing for us as a community is, what do people want? We wrote a federal grant to try to get a walking trail on our campus and try to connect, and I know that was part of the previous plan. I think that's great for our community. There's a lot of good research. As you build, whether it's an athletic facility or community facilities, people will come to your community. Westfield just invested millions and millions of dollars in building a huge sports complex. Now they have a $40 million hotel coming in right down the road. But I think we have to talk to our community. What do you want? Our school board, we're going to talk about some things in the fall, trying to get a feel, well, what is our community, what do they want to see developed at our school corporation? I think we have to do the same thing as a community.
And this is another jewel that you have in your community, is actually your school corporation. People want to come. You have a lot of people, as I understand, actually coming into the school corporation. So that's another issue too. So you have a lot of things going for you that I've been able to see just going through things in the last year or so. Now, you may think I'm rushing, and I've been working with the mayor and some other people for over a year on this. One issue on this is I teach full-time in the spring and the fall. I have more time in the summer. So that's one reason to bring it now.
Well, I know I appreciate you just taking the time to do it, and whether it happens this summer or next summer, it sounds like we all want to team together for success, but we need some time to sit back and kind of see where we are before we can jump forward. I think that's probably, what I'm hearing, that's a critical component with the group, and, as we said, our resources are shallow at this time, but we have to use them wisely.
Thank you.
I just have one more question. Frank, have you had an opportunity to look at the comprehensive
Redevelopment plan?
from the RDC? Yes, the
Yeah.
original.
Yeah, it's big. Some of that was, actually, a lot of it was around St. Francis. You need to be able to be more balanced, in my opinion, than just have all your eggs in one basket, actually be able to look at that. But I have looked at it. It's bigger than that report, I
I
believe.
know. You probably know more about it than any of us sitting here.
I mean, that's the thing is, in the past, you hear about it and some of the stuff that was in it, and I agree with you. I think St. Francis was just a huge, when I was a kid, your mother or your dad usually worked there, or your friend's mother or dad worked there. I mean, it was a huge part of our community, and I can see the pain in average citizens now that's gone. I mean, it's like finding out your wife was cheating with another man type anger towards St. Francis and the whole Franciscan community. And even now the mayor's having to deal with them, and it's painful. And and I agree with Dr. Kaiser. I mean, I would love to see, and that's why I wanted to do the TV. I'm hoping that we can get the community interested again in coming out and saying, hey, what about, X and Y? Why can't we do this? Because I think that's the biggest problem with Beech Grove is I see a lot of people in social media and other areas complain about Beech Grove, but nobody really wants to come out and help figure out how to fix Beech Grove. And that's really, to your point, what we need is we need more.
You need champions. You need champions in a lot of different
Exactly.
areas to actually be able to. That's one thing that there's actually 5 items, I think, in that Mitchell plan. And there's enough things there for someone actually to, because if it was just downtown redevelopment, you would get so many people involved. Having 5 different elements to look at, there's people that were involved in all of that from that 40.
So your report would be just a report on Beech Grove. It wouldn't necessarily be a comprehensive plan. Is that?
No, the other
or
issue.
is it a comprehensive plan? I mean, I'm trying to.
Yeah, the part of this on this is, I'm a certified planner. The planning is done for Beech Grove at the Metropolitan Planning Group. You do have a say on some of the things that go on with that. The comprehensive plan is there, basically. You have a redevelopment plan that you control yourselves right here. And part of this would be that it's important to know what the comprehensive plan says for this area, and not just, Beech Grove. It's the area of development around Beech Grove in Marion County. And then also, you need to have your redevelopment plan tailored to your needs and your wants, because this is your local plan that you can actually put together versus having that done from Indianapolis, Marion County. Nothing wrong. I know a lot of the people there at Marion County and Indianapolis, they're very good planners.
Any other thoughts or questions?
One last thing too is that I'm going to be doing an online course this summer for a capstone with South Bend, Indiana. And we're looking at a trail development up there and also redevelopment in downtown South Bend near the old Studebaker plant. That Studebaker plant, my dad's originally from South Bend. He worked there back in the late 40s, early 50s before Korea. It employed at one point in the 1950s 40,000 people in South Bend. That closed in 1963, 50 years ago. It has not really returned. It suffered a great deal. and they're still suffering. Right now, the mayor of South Bend has a program to tear down 1,000 homes in 1,000 days because they're condemned, and they need to replan and redevelop those areas. There's a lot of areas in Indiana through the Midwest that's going through some of these issues. So,
Can I say a few words?
Please.
I know this is a decision that I apologize for having such a short time for you to be able to review it. The timing was set somewhat by Mayor Buckley. We had talked about this originally back in December, January, and the mayor said, hey, he has a lot of things on his plate and did not want to have a meeting with Frank until the first part of April. And so we were looking at being able to identify the most critical things that Beech Grove needs to do to be able to move forward. The situation, I think, that you have with your previous redevelopment plan is that it is so large, and when you try to go through it, it's like you can get really bogged down in the details. And I think what you have the opportunity to do here is work with a person who has excellent experience. He understands all the critical principles. He understands the major players. It's as you have mentioned, he's actually spent more time looking at the redevelopment plan for Beech Grove than probably anybody in this room. And we're looking at a situation where he has the summer available to be able to be working with us. And if you choose not to do this, you're basically, if you want to be working with him, you're basically waiting a year. And I guess I would encourage you to go ahead and say, what are the critical things that you really do want to know about to be able to make a decision on this, and whether or not we need to have a follow-up meeting in 2 weeks from now to come back to you with that information, so that, I mean, I hate to lose a whole year. I hate to lose a whole year, and unfortunately, I think that's where this is headed. Does that make sense? So, I mean, we're looking at what the concerns that I've heard is, hey, this is more than just the redevelopment commission. Whether or not there is something that you could potentially consider saying, yes, we recognize this as something that is a good resource for this community, something we should invest in, whether or not you would want to possibly vote on being willing to pay 1/2 of that amount, and then find the time to be able to present the same information to the city council, to be able to say, here's the opportunity, we can work with this gentleman this summer. RDC has already stepped forward and said that they're willing to pay $2,500 and not lose a whole year. So I guess I would ask that you give that proposal some consideration.
I guess I'll throw it out there, but I feel like we got the whole proposal yesterday, and it's like, who has money? Oh yeah, the RDC. We've met without them. We've not included them until this point. Let's go in them and present them with a bill for $5,000 and tell them that's for their own good. And I mean, that's just, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying that's how I feel. And by Janice's head and Tammy's head, I don't know about Kathy and Ron, but that's just my feelings. How do you two feel about it?
I would be more apt to agree to it if we split the bill with the city.
Ron?
I can appreciate the constraints being placed on Frank's schedule because he is an educator and because the summer is downtime for him. I don't feel as though that should be used as a lever to prompt us to make a decision prematurely before we've had a chance to review this.
We've never even seen our own redevelopment plan.
Yeah.
We should probably get to see that.
I mean-
Not that we don't think what you want to do is a good idea, but we all feel like we haven't been included in the planning process at all, which I find kind of disheartening, actually. And that,
Help me understand that. But you think you haven't been included in the planning process?
in the meetings that you all have had,
We had a meeting.
you've
a
had
year-
two,
No, we had a meeting a year ago, okay?
and then you all just said
And
you
then
had
we
a meeting?
in April. And that was more to be able to say, what are the basic things that could be identified as critical things that can be used to be able to move our community forward,
Don't you think, I mean,
okay? Now then,
plan available for us to look at?
I apologize for not including someone from the RDC in that April meeting. We simply came together and said, how is it that we identify what are the critical things that could be in a proposal? Okay?
Okay.
You're the first group that we have come to. And Mayor, I think it was your decision to say, we need to talk with the RDC.
Really, the first meeting that we had, I don't even think we discussed redevelopment. I think it was more where is the city at financially and what has been done from the 1st of 2012 until we've met to stabilize the city. And then I think the second meeting, we talked a little bit about TIF districts, but the crust of it was really non-redevelopment because the city's in trouble, was in trouble. It's much better now. And we talked about taxes, we talked about fees in lieu of taxes, we talked about promoting business. A lot of those things are not redevelopment, RDC. They're civil city and how it affects the schools and the library. Only recently, really, did we talk about redevelopment. And I think the reason we talked about redevelopment is because of what is going on right now in the city. Over here on Bethel, out on Arlington, those are all redevelopment issues. They don't pertain to you because they're not in TIF districts, but they affect the city. And St. Francis is in a TIF district and it affects you directly. It also affects the city. There's no plan for St. Francis. We'll have an announcement on St. Francis probably Monday or Tuesday, and then we'll have a town hall meeting coming up after Memorial Day. But our meetings where I have to write a comprehensive development plan for the city. It should have been done in 2012, but it wasn't. So I'm going to move forward to write one, and I look forward to doing it because I have it's just exciting to put something down on paper where the city can be 5 or 10 years from now. And I want to be part of that, and I think you folks should be part of it as well. Because the city won't look like it does now in 3 years. It will look totally different because of what's about to happen. The school system will be much better 3 to 5 years from now because of what's going on right now.
It can't get any better.
financially. And believe it or not, as a civil city, it's important that our schools do well. And that's what all these talks are about. It's not necessarily redevelopment commission. The decision you made last week about repaving is exactly what you should be doing, is redeveloping this city. But we just have to put it down on paper. Whether you retain Frank tonight or next meeting or next year, that's up to you folks. We're moving forward, and I'm going to continue to meet with Frank because the civil city of Beech Grove has to have a plan, and we don't have one right now. The RDC, you folks need a plan. I don't know how many times I've read the comprehensive redevelopment plan. I've read it half a dozen times. I'm glad it's not working because it would have been a miserable failure. You would have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a landfill that you can't even get on. You've seen the $350,000 that was invested in the rock pile. We lost our shirt. St. Francis. 40 acres in a TIF district. Millions of dollars that could have went to this city and the school district has been wrapped up in a TIF district. St. Francis for absolutely no reason. It's time to get change, but you have to write that change. So we're going to meet and we're going to talk about how we're going to make Beech Grove better. What should Beech Grove look like 5 to 10 years from now? Whether I'm the mayor or not, that's not the point. The point is we need to move forward. You know, we need to include walking trails, bike trails. We need to include early childhood development. All of those things are relevant for this city in the future. And that's where we should go. How do we get there? I'm not smart enough to write it. That's why I need help. The money's going to be there. You folks are going to do well 3 to 5 years from now because of investments that are being made in this city. June the 26th, ADM is going to open up a $30 million mill. Sometime in June, I don't know when, Citizens Energy and Kinetrix Energy is going to cut the ribbons on a new factory out there, and it's going to be millions of dollars to this city and to the school district. June could be the biggest month in years in this city financially. So that's what I'm looking forward to. What do you do with the money? You make your schools better. You make your city better. That's what you do. People should have an understanding of where their city's headed. You guys have done more work in 3 meetings than they've done in 6 years. I'm not boasting. I'm just being honest with you. And you need to continue. So I'm going to go back and sit down. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Can I make maybe a closing comment? As I sit back and look at your scenario and having a chance to meet with Frank, can I just maybe suggest that maybe on an as-needed basis and trying to decipher what your current situation, you could always work with Frank on a contract basis, on a hourly basis or something, because just sitting in the couple of meetings I've sat with Frank, I've learned a lot. And I'm going to talk a little bit about TIF and some other things here in my portion of the meeting, and I'll try to make it brief. But, you know, maybe, you know, obviously it didn't sound like you're really ready for a comprehensive plan. Maybe that's next summer. But maybe it's a situation as you're reviewing the comprehensive plan and you have questions, you could work through Frank as a consultant or as a, you know, and that's really up to you guys to work something out with him. But I found that he has a great knowledge and again, it sounds like you're not ready to make that big step for the comprehensive plan. And, you know, maybe it's looking into the plan, and between now and next summer, you do have some community meetings and get some input so you are ready for it. And And again, maybe Frank doesn't want to do that, but I do know that he's a good resource, and as time presents itself to you guys, maybe that's how you look at it. So I don't know if you want to give feedback on that or how that might work into it.
What I'm willing to work with you guys on this, I think I could work with you this summer on something that we both can agree on. Obviously, I was asked to put together some things on a work plan. If there's some things, obviously, that you wanted to look at, we could do some things. We could actually sit down and try to negotiate this. And part of it could be, this is your third meeting for everyone?
With us as the way we are
So
now.
maybe a little bit of helping on giving some background and resource information and some other things to make your job a little easier.
I guess my feeling, Frank, is I don't have a problem working with you. I
Right.
think you seem like a good guy, and your work seems pretty solid. The mayor's impressed with you. Dr. Kaiser is too. So, I mean, but I guess where I am is if we do this, I want us to be included. In other words, if we're paying the bill, I want the stuff to come to us, and I want to know, because like I say, in the past, that's kind of the RDC's been pay this, and off to the side somebody else goes. So, I mean, that would
This is
be,
fine.
I mean, that's something in the past that past RDCs have complained about, is that they are a dumping ground for things to be paid for and people to be taken care of. And if I don't have a problem doing the comprehensive plan, but I want you coming to us with it. And I mean, if it's, every other month or sending us emails where the status is and stuff, but what I don't want to do is come into a July or August meeting if we do this and say, well, we met with the mayor, Dr. Kaiser, and so, and this is what I've come up with. And because then I think you will have people here very upset, because like I say, if we're paying the bill, we want to be in the meetings, and we want to be in the planning, and we want to be in the feedback.
I understand. I
Right,
understand
and
that.
I think that everybody in this room has the community's best interest. I mean,
Absolutely.
It's obvious, or we wouldn't be here.
Obviously.
But like last month, I mean, $5,000 is a drop in the bucket compared to the fact that 2 months ago, we were proposed with, we need $200,000 for
220.
paving. We had 30 days to drive around the city, see what was talked about. We had information. We all did that. They came back and voted on it. We had the name and didn't even have the spelling 2 weeks ago. And I just think that it's a lot to ask to ask somebody to vote on something tonight when you didn't have any information until
And I think-
yesterday afternoon.
And I think Kathy's idea has got a lot of merit too, in that it sounds like you're doing work for the city as well on this. I'd have no problem putting down our half tonight, but that's up to these guys. But I mean, I just, like I said, and to Tammy's
think if-
point,
if-
5,000 isn't a lot, but I think the problem is that when we hear, well, we had this meeting or we had that meeting, people feel slighted. And again, it's not that, my feeling on it is that, like you say, we do take this job seriously, and we do want Beech Grove to be better, because I know Ron and Kathy and myself have been a part of past RDCs where nothing has got accomplished, where meeting after meeting was just banging your head against the wall. So we do care about it, because these guys have been on it for almost 2 years now, and are pretty committed to it. So that's where I think a lot of this animosity at getting it the day before and having to come through comes from. It's not directed against you.
I understand
It's just a pattern of behavior that has happened in the past that makes people uncomfortable.
If there was part of the bill being paid, you have skin in the game. So basically, you should be involved in the process.
Personally, I would really like for us to sit down and talk about it before we vote about it. Now, if you guys decide you want to, obviously that's the majority.
I'm in agreement with you.
That's my own thought. Not to say that we won't say yes, but we just like to talk about it amongst ourselves.
Well, and I think that it should be presented to the city council first to see if they will agree to pay the other half. I mean,
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Without a
everybody's
doubt.
going to benefit. Everybody should.
Dennis, if it's presented to the city council, is it a case where you have to bring it up 3 separate meetings?
No, what you have to do is, what I may recommend that you do is invite the council president to your next meeting. Talk to him.
Can he make the decision on his own to?
No, he would take it to the council.
Well, then
Can't you take it to the council? Can you guys take it to the council?
But I think it would be.
I get what, I understand what you're saying. Well, I'll tell you what.
And I think we should have
I
a
thi-
special
I think
meeting
we
and
need to
not
have a
wait till
special
next
meeting
month.
and look at our calendars. Now, I know we're coming into race weekend, and I know we got like 7 days of school left, my wife tells me every day. So I think maybe, I don't know, maybe we could see it when, invite Councilman Bell or President Bell of the council, and maybe hold a special meeting. I don't know if we want to hold the week of the race or the week after Memorial Day. I would let you guys look at your calendars and we can get together, but I have no problem. And if Councilman Bell thinks it's something that'll fly, then, you know,
It'd be
The
nice
city
if
has
maybe
a-
a couple
and we should
of
hold it-
other council members would come as well, just
what
So they
day
could
is
do
the
it.
city council meeting in June?
Monday.
We have to have the meeting before June 2nd, because we'd want Ed to present it to
Sure,
the council.
sure.
So if we could do that, and if we had his assurance, then we can vote on it
Sure.
at a public meeting to
Sure.
approve it. But, I mean, we can
For-
call,
For informational purposes, too, I'd be happy to meet with anyone or talk to anyone also, so if that would help.
I don't know, Dennis, do you think he should be there to talk with Ed, or? I mean, like I say, I don't have a problem with your idea. I really don't. I agree with the mayor. Our comprehensive plan would give anybody a headache because it was not written for Beech Grove. I don't know who it was written for, but I do think Beech Grove needs to figure out where we want to be in 15 years. Because to Janice's point, do we want to become the senior nursing center of America where the average age is 80 years of age that she
I
worries
mean, the
about?
school system.
That would be rough on the school corporation, I think.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you know,
See,
I
the
mean,
one-
that's a concern of hers, is
Yeah.
that we're getting all this senior housing. And again, to me, that's part of a
Well,
development
see,
plan.
I'm a
Certified planner.
Right, I know.
My reputation, my name, the one
thing that I do with planning is that we serve the public. We cannot do anything behind closed doors on public decision-making, obviously. The issue on this would be, if you're involving me, there are going to have to be public meetings and public input. So that goes along with this, but
Isn't the council meeting public, though?
Yes.
and we could work things out, I think. And I'm actually between, I don't know what's going on with internally some of these things, so just
I
let me
don't
know.
think we're too far off, Frank, on coming to agreement on this. I think we all agree that it's needed. Again, I think we're still trying to find our comfort zone as an RDC. And I think it's gonna, I'm more likely to think it's gonna happen than it's not gonna happen. I just think people have to get comfortable with it. And talking to Councilman Bell and seeing where the city council is on it, I feel good about it happening, but like I said, I think people need to sit down and talk and get to that feeling, the same feeling in their own time.
Thank you.
One of the things that
Thank you.
I want you to have the opportunity to do is to be able to read this 4-page proposal and pay close attention to the deliverables, okay? One of the things that you had asked, in our brief discussion in the last meeting was, can you give us some examples of what this gentleman has done in the past? Two of the examples that he has given you does have a title of comprehensive plan, okay? But what is being proposed here, I think I would not describe as a comprehensive plan. I mean, Frank, you want to comment from the standpoint that, here you say before any redevelopment plan is pursued, the area's comprehensive plan, you have to look at some preliminary things. So I guess I would like to be able to have proper expectations to be able to say, I don't want to think that you're going to get another 2-inch thick comprehensive plan when that's not what's being proposed here.
Well, I don't think they need one. The issue is you need to know the background information. You need to have all the financials in front of you. You have to have it in a way that you understand that. You need to have staff or someone. I could actually sit down and go through the different things for you and what they mean. The other issue on this is that You may want to go a little different. It is up to you to make decisions on planning, on redevelopment. As a planner, we give advice. We tell people the issues on the legal aspects of the plan, what you can do and what you can't do. You can't spend the funds on this, you can on this. You can't spend it this way. There are certain things on connections, on streets, and some other things you do on TIFs. Some of that is just giving you a little bit background on this. And then if you want to go in, because basically $5,000 would not get you a redevelopment plan. I mean, would be much more. This would be get you ready to know where you want to go.
Any other comments on this before we move on, or?
I think it would be great if we all had a copy, whether it was just a PDF or whatever, of the redevelopment plan that we could read through in the next couple of weeks.
I would like that.
And before the special meeting that you're proposing.
There's one copy there. I mean, I don't,
No, not that one. I'm talking about the one we have for Beech
For
Grove.
us, Beech
oh,
Grove.
Beech Grove, oh, yeah. I think that's on the Beech Grove website, isn't it? So, yes, it is. If you go to Beech Grove, the city of Beech Grove, go to the RDC, it has the comprehensive plan there.
That'd probably be a good thing to review.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A
and
good thing to review.
since we're talking here real quick, we got the 19th through the 23rd, or the 26th through the 30th. Now, 19th through 23rd, that's race week, that's next week. And then the following week is the week after the race, so Memorial Day obviously won't work, but we'd
Does it
have,
have to be a Thursday?
no, I don't think so. I'm free on that. I don't know about you guys.
Check.
Okay.
I'm not available any night next week. I'm overwhelmed with orders at work.
Shocking. So let's do this, guys. Why don't you guys look at your calendars, and because we'll get Dr. Kaiser for no reason to make him. Let's look at May 27th through the 30th. Why don't we email each other and let's know what day that works, and then we will send I'll make sure Dan gets a thing knowing that we're going to have a special meeting, and I'll also email Ed Bell and call him to make sure he can come to it and let him know.
Are you gonna do you want me to attend?
Do we need him to, or?
Has Ed Bell met you before?
No.
I would leave that to the decision of the mayor, because the mayor knows Ed, and
Doesn't have to come.
I mean, we'll discuss it with Ed, and I mean, in the meantime, I'm sure the mayor can discuss it with Ed too, so. I thank you for your time coming up here, I really do.
I have another question, Dennis. We get together with Ed, and then Ed presents us at the next city council meeting. Can a decision be made that night?
Sure.
Okay, it doesn't have to go through 2 or 3 readings, like, okay.
No, that's ordinances.
City council has their own budget, and that's why you run it to the council president, and
Right.
the council yays it, then the council president does whatever he does, and the invoice goes to.
Okay.
So let me ask you one quick question, because it just popped into my mind. So let's say we do this 5,000 and do this plan. What would we be looking at, say, if we wanted to, or the next board, or whenever, let's say if we wanted to actually start into an actual RDC redevelopment plan to replace the current one? What would cost, I mean, you don't have to tell us tonight, but that would be something I think the board would probably be interested too, is what long-term cost are we looking at for an actual comprehensive development?
One thing I was going to say when I came up here is that I'm willing to work with you guys a little bit on those work program deliverables. So maybe if you suggest that you want to put that in, I could actually go ahead and do the research on that and give you an idea and give you examples of recent redevelopment plans that have been done in Indiana.
I don't think it's a bad idea, because I think when that meeting, when we meet, I think hopefully you guys will have a chance to look at it, and we can discuss it then and think about it. But, I mean, if we're doing this, I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea to start thinking about getting a new comprehensive plan, because one of the things you'll see is a lot of times people try to tie your hands by what's in the old plan, saying, well, it's not in the plan, or, I mean, we had that issue with the rock pile, if you remember, and I don't think a new plan going forward that makes sense.
Well, I would,
And it's a lot easier, because the old one, I think, was too big, too complex, and too complicated.
Well, it'd really be great. When I was a planning director, I had a little bit the opposite direction. They would never follow the plan. So, it's nice to see that some people actually follow plans, but I think, in summary on this, look at the proposal I put in there on some of the deliverables. If there's something you want to tweak around with, you could send me an email or something. We could go ahead and try to work on that. If you want me to do a cost estimate and give you some examples of what other areas have done on redevelopment, I could do that. We're going to have to take things in and out
Right.
to be able to do that. I'm willing to work on that.
Okay.
Sounds good.
And now, Dr. Kaiser, sorry we've kept you so long.
Should I listen to this, Jeff?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'll try to be brief, because if you're a Pacer fan, that game starts pretty soon.
Well, that game's already on.
And hopefully they'll show up tonight. Yeah.
Well, they didn't show up last week. You're so funny.
The school board members, I'm not sure Tammy has had a chance to read through this. I'll step to the mic here in a moment. But this is a document that Bill Sheldrake did for a school corporation as we were moving into the referendum in 2009, and then he updated it. And I'm not going to go through it, but I wanted to give it to you to make sure you had the information, because it goes in great detail on why the city of Beech Grove City Schools, and the library have lost so much revenue in the last few years. When I took over as superintendent in 2009, we had an assessed, and that should be 2008, we had an assessed valuation for the school corporation loan of $520 million. Now, I think you understand the city, civil city and the school district are a little bit different, but not too much different on our assessed valuation. In 2014, we had an assessed valuation of $358 million. We have the largest circuit breaker drop percentage of any school corporation in the state of Indiana. We've had the largest percentage drop in revenue in the state of Indiana of any school corporation. And a little history on Bill Sheldrake. Bill Sheldrake does the taxes for Marion County. Political analysts, they work with the Marion County assessor, and they're the ones that put all the data together that go into your tax bills. He is the expert on this. He just worked with 3 school corporations that won referendums last week. And so I asked him to put some information together. Back in 2009, when we did our referendum, we chose 35 cents because at that time, that would have produced $1.5 million worth of revenue. What was good about that timing, that's also when property taxes were dropping and how the state of Indiana did their general fund. 2/3 of our budget came from the state of Indiana, 1/3 came from local property taxes. So it was a really good time to have a referendum, because for most people, our excuse me, I'm fighting a cold. Our referendum was relatively tax neutral. Unfortunately, since then, most home values in Beech Grove have gone down a little bit. But the biggest change, and again, I'm not going to go through this, but I thought it would be good information just for you to have a background of the history of AB in Beech Grove. If you look at page 18 as a reference point, that shows you the largest taxpayers in Beech Grove. And you'll notice how those have changed up and down over the year. And some of these are in TIF districts. And again, that information is in there for you to review. Again, I'm not going to go through it because it's pretty detailed. And if you look at page 19, you'll see just a breakdown on our AV and where it comes from. So I thought instead of just giving you, a small piece of it, I'd give it to you for your reading pleasure. Hopefully it's not as complex as the redevelopment plan for the area. If you look over to page 21, one of the biggest reasons that we've had a drop in assessed valuation are property tax appeals. And you'll see some of the largest businesses and apartments that have appealed their taxes. This all started back, way back when North Meridian, Indianapolis, those homeowners in there started screaming to the governor that, oh my gosh, my taxes went up. Well, they'd been under assessed for years. Politics, maybe, I don't know that. So Governor Daniels ordered a reassessment, and then everybody filed for appeals. If I was one of these businesses, I would have filed for an appeal. So as you look at the drop in RV from 528 or 520 down to 358, it wasn't just the drop in home values. It was a lot of our businesses asking for reassessment. The other thing I want to point out, any questions on that's just really more FYI than anything else. There's a lot of great information in here related to TIF and some other things that you can read. But I'd like you to turn to page 29. Beech Grove was one of the first school corporations in the state of Indiana to win our referendum. Again, our situation was very, very simple. We had a drop in, when the property tax caps went in place, that meant our school corporation was going to lose $1.5 million. So we went to our community and we said, hey, we need some assistance. Over 60% of our community members voted for our referendum that allowed us to keep our transportation fund, our capital projects fund, and be able to transport kids to school. The one thing that no one knew and no one really realized and no one told us in all different meetings is that as our 35 cents, we won that, you as the Redevelopment Commission would have money coming your direction in that 35 cents. And according to Bill Sheldrake, for the last 4 years, about $85,000 has come to the Redevelopment Commission. And when that was found out after our referendum, the legislators passed a law to stop that. So in 2010, when Speedway and other school corporations had the referendum, the additional tax did not come to the Redevelopment Commission in those areas. But what they didn't do, they didn't make it retroactive. So Beech Grove is the only school corporation in the state of Indiana when they won their referendum, whether it was a capital projects referendum or an operating referendum. There's two types. Operating goes into your general funds, and capital is if you're going to build a building, and ours was an operating one. So at that point in time, I went to Pat Miller and talked to Pat about this. Let me start again. So in 2010, they changed the law, but they didn't make it retroactive. So I started talking to Pat Miller, who's just been a real champion for our school corporation. I said, Pat, this really isn't right that we're the only school corporation this has happened to. And he says, sure, you're right. So in 2012, she started talking to the members of the Senate. And in 2013, they passed a law that made this retroactive. They eliminated, and Beech Grove, it was a law passed just for Beech Grove. So effective, and we hope the 13, but in the 14. So this year, that 35 cents now comes back to Beech Grove. So if your taxes are a little bit less than 14, it's because we've now recouped that money. Does that make sense to everybody? It was a great windfall for you. No one knew it. But again, I thank Pat Miller for passing that legislation for us. As she also passed some legislation that allows us to restructure some debt, which is really critical for us. So the second any questions on that? Now, I want you to understand that the next page on page 30, it talks about the library consolidation. I am not a proponent of that, okay? Bill did that study for us. I like our Beech Grove Library, and I know some people out there said, well, Kaiser wants the library to go with Marion County. I do not want that. But there are some financials. So as you see this is just in the document. I'm not a proponent of that. I like our Beech Grove Library. I've had some community members say, well, because I've shared this with some library board members, I'm not a proponent of it. I like our Beech Grove Library, as the mayor does. We've had that discussion. But there's just some data for whatever it's worth. A year ago, in July 1st, I met with Joe Griffin. And I handed him this letter that I'm going to hand to you.
Thank you, sir.
So in the spring of 13, again, Pat Miller was successful in getting the referendum language changed. She tried to get it done for 13, but the Department of Local Government Finance said, well, we've already been working on the tax bills and we want this to be effective in 14. So for 2009, 2010, 2011, I'm sorry, for 2010, 11, 12, and 13, the RDC has received about $85,000 from our referendum that has been given out to you guys, twice. That's been split over twice a year. Again, as the letter I wrote to Joe, I asked that would the RDC consider looking at that revenue over those 4-year period of time and working with the school corporation to provide that back to the school corporation, because that was the original intent. Again, it wasn't the RDC's fault. It's just the way the law was written. It was a flaw in the referendum law. Again, it was corrected moving forward, but it wasn't corrected retro. And again, Pat did that for us. Again, I met with Joe. I presented this. I honestly don't know if he took it any place past that. I guess I'd like to reintroduce it for future discussion. And as I come here tonight asking you to consider this, knowing that you just allocated some money to roads and other things, but what I would ask you to consider moving forward is looking back over those 4 years and at least having a discussion moving forward. Again, I don't ask you much. My intent was not to have you make any decisions tonight, just make you aware of what took place and a future consideration of looking at that money that's gone to the RDC and providing that back to our kids at some point in time. It may not be feasible right now, based on what's going on with your resources. And again, I think one thing to think about, some things going on with St. Francis Hospital and maybe receiving some notification of tax liability. Maybe that's something we can talk about as we move forward with this, related to that and different payments that are going on there. But, we feel as the school corporation, I've shared this with my school board, that money was intended for the school corporation. Our patrons voted for that. And if there's any way at any point in time, we'd like to see that money coming back just for those 4 years that should have come to us. You might ask, well, what are we going to spend on? My original proposal to Joe was to look at school security. Well, we now have a security grant from the state of Indiana. Our middle school is now fully equipped with security coming in the front door. We're going to do Hornet Park this summer. Our biggest need is technology in the hands of kids. So I'd like to, and again, I don't really expect even to discuss in any great detail tonight. I just want to present it to you. But this is where we want to go with our kids. This is in fact, the school board members have not seen this because we just got it today. This is called a Google Chromebook. And believe it or not, this device only costs $300. And this is, right now we have tablets for our kids, and I'll pass that around. Tim Ressler just gave that to me. I said, hey, have you got the new Google Chromebook? He said it came in yesterday. Franklin Redevelopment Commission and Franklin Schools just entered into an agreement that they are going to provide, the Redevelopment Commission will provide a laptop for every kid at Franklin Community Schools, and that's over 1,700 kids. Our goal is to look at how can we get that in the hands of our kids. Our tablets are 3 years old. They're not meeting our needs, and but we feel that's a good device. We do technology loans, and unfortunately right now we're trying to do that. We even have to replace the phone system. But again, I would just ask you for, as we move forward, to consider looking at that as revenue becomes available and trying to get that money going back in the direction that it was originally intended. Again, it was not like the Redevelopment Commission was taking our money, just that's how the law was at that time, and it's been rectified. So just open any questions or feedback.
I have a
Yes.
question. Would these still belong to the school, or would they belong to the student that's using them?
Well, what we would probably do, what we'd like to do is after a certain amount of time, the kid would get to keep it. If we gave it to the kid as freshman, it's a $300 device. It can be worked out any way at the end of the 4 years, because it's about a 4-year device.
Right.
And our goal is that if you're a sophomore or junior, if you'd want to buy it, we would prorate it. I mean, there's different ways we can do that.
Are you
And
just
if they
talking
break it
high
or
school?
lose it?
High school for the time being.
They're insured.
The cost of those would really be equivalent to what the money that came to the RDC would be equivalent to buy one of those, for every kid at the high school.
So how many kids are in the high school?
800 and, well, it depends on which day it is and what time of year. Our prediction right now, we're going to have 250 freshmen, 250 sophomores, about 180 juniors, and hopefully at least that many seniors. So we're about 800 and change. We never know how many will show up. You know, we know at the high school eventually we're going to be 1,000 kids if the trend keeps on. As mentioned earlier, we have 600 transfer kids that are coming to Beech Grove. And I know some of our parents don't like that, but I remind people that my daughter's a transfer student. You know, coming to Beech Grove with my daughter and all their parents have helped economic development because they buy gas here, they buy food here, and they spend a lot of time here. If you come to any high school weekend, you'll see our parking lot full with a lot of people that come to our facility. So our goal with allowing transfer kids is that they'll buy a house in Beech Grove or they'll move into an apartment, and we've had many that have done that.
Well, I agree with you. I think a parent should be to decide where a kid gets to go to school. I've always believed that. And if you're providing a quality school, people are going to come and be educated by your teachers and under your tutelage. So I'm a firm believer in that. And I will tell you, my wife's school, she teaches 7th and 8th grade, and they've got the Chromebooks. And it has made life of a teacher a lot easier. It's a lot quicker. Now, I will say this. You have to watch the cheating. Like the kids opening, when they're given a test on the computer and the kids are opening up the previous page with the notes to get the answer. But, I think technology is important. My only question is, if we can put $170,000 into our school system by letting Marion County library system take over Beech Groves, why wouldn't we? Because, here's my thing. We've gone to the downtown library branch, and I like it. And to me, we're residents of Marion County. Part of our property taxes go to Marion County to pay that library system. If we can consolidate and save money, and to me, $170,000, that's going to get you about halfway through to buying your Chromebooks. And to me, who runs the Beech Grove Library isn't as important as getting those kids those Chromebooks. And if we can save $170,000 and get it into our schools, I'll tell you right now, I would support you fully in taking that money, because I think it's more important that you get that than we maintain turf wars, because again, we're close to the Garfield Park Library, the Fountain Square Library. There's a lot of libraries, and Beech Grove's got a good library. I find it hard to believe that it would go downhill just because it was tied to Indianapolis. Anyway, I think it makes some things easier.
Well, I would say that's why we have a very good library board to work through those types of decisions, and I know that's been discussed, and I know the library board has seen that information. And again, I think the key thing, we got to continue to team together, know what's the library, the city, and that's what's been, I know even with our previous mayors, it's been really a pleasure to team together. And Dennis has really gone above and beyond. He's always thinking about the schools and what we do. So, as they said, I'm presenting the information for you guys tonight. I did not expect you to say, yes, this is a great idea, or no, but I would hope yet this summer we can have some further discussion on this. And
I think it's a good idea. I don't know if we could necessarily write a check for $85,000, but I'd definitely be willing to see how much we can, that is your money, as bad as that sounds, give back to you. Because again, I know the value of these Chromebooks and giving these kids technology. It's going to help with their reading, it's going to help with their writing, it's going to help with their savvy of computers. It's a win for the kids, and we should do everything possible to get those Chromebooks. Because like I say, my wife's school's had them for a couple of years now, and it does make a difference.
I will tell you, this is becoming the product most schools are purchasing because of the affordability.
And you
Our
don't need
tablets that we
textbooks.
bought 3 years ago were $300, and I will tell you, it wasn't the best decision I ever made as far as the one we chose, but it was the best that was available at the time. In 3 years, the technology, that's the same price we paid for a tablet, and that's a pretty nice device. And we just bought brand new ones for grades 4 through 8, and they're working okay. But our high school tablets, it's not as functional as we can. So again, and just to summarize, looking at, I would ask you to consider having discussion with us about the 85,000 that was paid over the last 4 years. If we could look at some time over a period of time of trying to get that back in the hands of our schools. I know you don't have that kind of money sitting around and right now, but maybe with hopefully some new growth in the TIF districts and as we move forward, and maybe I can come back later in June or July, and if you have a chance to digest it, and if you have questions, a couple people can get a hold of me pretty easily, and just I just wanted to start the discussion. Like I said, I started with Joe back in July. I didn't really get a response, and I thought I'd come back. Ironically, it was the same night I was going to come part of this to really have the discussion with you. And again, I just want to thank Pat Miller for everything she has done for the community of Beech Grove. She is truly a champion of our school district. She's visited our new science academy. She's been such a huge supporter. And again, just recently put some new law in just to help us financially with being able to restructure some debt after some other people at the state level government weren't as let's say cooperative. She understands what communities need, and I think she goes that extra mile for us. So I'm open to any other questions or feedback at this point in time.
Clarify, the 85,000, that's cumulative, not annually.
Well, what I would suggest, since over the last 4 years, basically $85,000 came to the Redevelopment Commission so for the first 4 years, for 10, 11, 12, and 13, that money went into your tax accounts when it was intended by the referendum to be going to the schools.
But was it 85,000
A year for 4 years.
340.
No, that's based on bill, and we can get specific dollar amounts if we would tend to do that. And again, we could even look at that money coming back to us over a 4-year period of time, based on what your sources are. And again, I would be tough to me to sit here and juggle what's more important, a Chromebook or getting our streets paved. I think it's pretty equal. People moved to Beech Grove when, the mayor said during his campaign, and it really hit me hard, he said people want their streets paved, their trash picked up, and they want the basic necessities. Unfortunately, right now for school kids, that's become a basic necessity. And as our kids go into the job market, and what we're doing at Beech Grove High School is just amazing to me. We have the second largest FFA program in the state of Indiana. We've got over 400 kids taking agri-science classes at the high school. I could go on and on. My daughter took computer programming and learned how to program robots while she's getting college credit at Ivy Tech right out of Beech Grove High School. And I could go on and talk about that forever. I told a teacher candidate today, we're in the process of hiring someone that works at Rolls-Royce for 16 years. He's an engineer. And we met with him today to take over for Jimmy Johnson, who's been here for a couple years, as in 40. And I was recruiting him to come here, and I took him into a class, and I had the kids tell him why he should take the job at Beech Grove. It was pretty amazing what the kids said about it. Kind of made my day. And again, I know resources are really tight for everybody. If we can team together at some point in time, I think we can take our kids to the next level in the area of technology and thinking about careers and problem solving and things like that. So I just appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sure, Dennis.
Very briefly. I want to pass on a couple of things that really nobody knows, but it's very, very relevant to the city and to you folks. When I became mayor, our assessed valuation was $325 million. That was down. In 2004, our assessed valuation was $504 million. That's how far we dropped. And then to compound that, we had tax caps and poor spending decisions. So the city was really on the verge of defaulting back in 2012. In 2014, this is the first year since 2004 that the assessed valuation for the civil city of Beech Grove is going up. And if you look at page 18, in 2015, ADM milling will increase the AV of Beech Grove by $25 million. And on their personal and commercial taxes, none of those are under appeal. At the same time, in 2015, Citizens Gas and Coke Utility, which will be labeled as Kinetrix Energy, will add an additional $25 to $30 million of AV to the city of Beech Grove next year. The project that you folks approved with NRP in 2016 or 2017 will add an additional $9 million to the city of Beech Grove. And St. Fran, very few people know this, but I will tell you, when St. Francis closed in 2012, I contacted the assessor's office and I asked them to start being assessed for property taxes because they were no longer a hospital at that property. And St. Francis appealed that request, and they were awarded that appeal. But in 2014, according to the assessor's office, they were assessed $5 million for property and $26.7 million for buildings. So they received a tax bill this spring, like you and I did, for $764,000. Now, whether they pay it or not, yet to be seen. If they pay that, a significant portion goes to you folks. I personally don't like St. Francis in a TIF. I would rather see it in the control of the civil city and the school. Obviously, because it's more money for us. But anyway, the one more thing I wanted to pass on, and this is why this has been one of the biggest things I've done, and quietly, is we had to raise the AV of the city or we were dead. And nobody was promoting this city. And now this city has kind of turned a little bit. And the most significant thing that tells me that it's getting better is, and you might not realize this, but when I became mayor, there were 83 vacant homes in Beech Grove, foreclosed. Now we've started a Department of Compliance, and they just got through, and that count has dropped to either 31 or 32. So in 2 years, we have put, 47, 48 homes on the back on the tax rolls. That's what's relevant, and that's what's going to make the school go. That's what's going to make the city go. And so 3 to 5 years from now, you will be in a very good position to make some major investments in this city. So,
What happens if St. Francis doesn't pay that bill?
well, I got to be careful. Can you ask me that Tuesday?
Sure. Mhm. Sure can.
Then I would answer it.
Yes.
But and the reason I found out about it was our financial advisor. We're preparing for the budgets for next year, and our financial advisor for the city asked me about it. He said, "You realize that St. Francis was taxed this amount of money. What do you want to do with it?" And I said, "I don't want to do anything with it. I want you to put it to the side in case they appeal it. But if they don't, and they should pay because they no longer provide a hospital service, then you folks are in a better position to reinvest in this city. And if you choose to do that, which I support, obviously, well, that's good. We all win."
Mayor, won't most of that money that's in the TIF go to the redevelopment?
I think most of it would.
It won't come to the school or the city because it's in the TIF, it'll come to you guys.
But anyway, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anything else? Well, I want to thank the mayor, Dr. Kaiser, Frank, and our guests in the audience for coming. I appreciate your time. Like I said, the RDC board will figure out a time to meet, not next week, but the week after, our calendars, so that we can with Ed, and we'll try to get a decision on that. And Dr. Kaiser, I understand it as tax revenues or what the RDC was going to get will come in June, so we'll kind of have some idea. So I would say July, August, I would be interested in hearing from you again. I do think we need to work together, and I think we need to get the mayor or other people and start sitting down and trying to get community involvement to move Beech Grove forward, because to the mayor's point, to Kathy's point, getting those 30 homes, the RDC, again, could take a couple $100,000 and start flipping those and getting those back on the tax rolls. Not having an abandoned house helps community values, which helps all of us. So, I mean, that's what I think Kathy's idea. And then I think Janice's idea is still a great one of, let's fix up the signage. We got a beautiful street down there. Let's make the rest of it look nice and not have, have good signage and good curb appeal. So, again, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I appreciate your time and your effort, and we will see you at the next meeting.